The American Civil War, a conflict that tore a nation apart and forged a new identity in blood and fire. From 1861 to 1865, brother fought against brother in a brutal struggle over slavery, states' rights, and the very soul of the United States. Over the course of 4 years, more than 600,000 soldiers lost their lives in countless battles, large and small. But some stand out, moments that defined the war, shifted its course, and left an indelible mark on American history. Today, we are counting down the 10 most pivotal battles of the American Civil War, from the first defiant shots to the final, solemn surrender. These are the fields where a nation was tested, broken, and ultimately reborn. First, let's go to where it all began, Fort Sumter. In April 1861, Confederate forces fired on the U.S. Army garrison in Charleston, South Carolina. These were the opening shots of the war. While the battle itself resulted in few casualties, its political impact was immense. The attack on a federal fort galvanized the North, prompting President Lincoln to call for 75,000 volunteers to put down the rebellion. The South, in turn, saw it as a defense of their sovereignty. The lines were drawn, and the nation plunged headfirst into war. Fort Sumter wasn't a major military engagement, but it was the spark that ignited the bloodiest conflict in American history. Next, the First Battle of Bull Run, or Manassas as the Confederates called it. In July 1861, both sides, full of patriotic fervor and naivete, expected a quick and glorious victory. Washington, D.C. socialites even packed picnics to watch the battle. What they witnessed was a rude awakening. After initial Union success, Confederate reinforcements, including those under General Thomas Stonewall Jackson, turned the tide. The Union retreat devolved into a panicked rout. Bull Run shattered the illusion of a short war, proving to both sides that this would be a long, costly, and brutal affair. The reality of combat had arrived. We then move west to the Battle of Shiloh in April 1862. This Tennessee battle revealed the true, horrific cost of the war. A surprise Confederate attack nearly destroyed Ulysses S. Grant's Union Army on the first day. Grant, however, refused to retreat. Reinforced overnight, he launched a fierce counterattack the next day, driving the Confederates from the field. The two-day battle resulted in over 23,000 casualties, more than all previous American wars combined. The sheer scale of the slaughter shocked the nation. Shiloh was a grim lesson in the escalating brutality of the conflict. The fifth battle on our list brings us back to the east, Antietam. Fought in Maryland on September 17, 1862, it remains the single bloodiest day in American history. General Robert E. Lee's first invasion of the North was met by George McClellan's Army of the Potomac. The fighting raged through a cornfield, along a sunken road later known as Bloody Lane, and across a stone bridge. By nightfall, over 22,000 men were killed, wounded, or missing. While tactically a draw, Antietam was a strategic victory for the Union. It repelled Lee's invasion and gave President Lincoln the political victory he needed to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, fundamentally changing the nature of the war. Following Antietam, we have the Battle of Fredericksburg in December 1862. This was one of the most lopsided and crushing defeats for the Union. General Ambrose Burnside ordered his army to make repeated, futile frontal assaults against entrenched Confederate positions on Marye's Heights. Wave after wave of Union soldiers were cut down. A Confederate general at the scene remarked, "It is well that war is so terrible, otherwise we should grow too fond of it." Fredericksburg was a disaster for Union morale and a stunning display of the tactical advantage held by a well-entrenched defender. At number 5, we find what is often called Robert E. Lee's perfect battle, Chancellorsville. In May 1863, Lee, facing a Union army more than twice his size, took an audacious gamble. He divided his smaller force, sending Stonewall Jackson on a daring flanking march that crushed the Union right flank. While a brilliant Confederate victory, it came at a terrible cost. Stonewall Jackson, Lee's most trusted subordinate, was accidentally shot by his own men and died days later. Lee's victory was a masterpiece of military strategy, but the loss of Jackson was a blow from which the Confederacy would never fully recover. The turning point of the war, our number 4 battle, is Gettysburg. In July 1863, Lee once again invaded the North, seeking a decisive victory that would end the war. For 3 days, the Union and Confederate armies clashed in the fields and hills around a small Pennsylvania town. The battle culminated on the 3rd day with Pickett's charge, a disastrous Confederate assault on the Union center that was repulsed with staggering losses. Lee was forced to retreat, his army shattered. Gettysburg was the high-water mark of the Confederacy. From this point on, they would be fighting a defensive war. Simultaneously with Gettysburg, another crucial struggle was reaching its climax in the West, the Siege of Vicksburg. This fortified city on the Mississippi River was the key to controlling the entire waterway. For months, General Ulysses S. Grant maneuvered and fought to encircle the city. After a 47-day siege, the starving Confederate defenders surrendered on July 4, 1863, just one day after the victory at Gettysburg. The fall of Vicksburg gave the Union complete control of the Mississippi River, splitting the Confederacy in two and cutting off vital supply lines. This 1-2 punch of Gettysburg and Vicksburg marked the beginning of the end for the South. Our second to last battle takes us back to the Western Theater, Chickamauga. Fought in September 1863, this was one of the few major Confederate victories in the latter half of the war. In the dense forests of northern Georgia, General Braxton Bragg's Confederate Army managed to break the Union line, sending much of the Federal Army into a panicked retreat. Only a desperate stand by General George Thomas, who earned the nickname the Rock of Chickamauga, saved the Union Army from complete destruction. It was the second bloodiest battle of the war after Gettysburg and a stark reminder that even late in the conflict, the Confederacy could still strike a powerful blow. Finally, we arrive at the end of the road, Appomattox Courthouse. This was not a large battle, but rather the final act of the war. In April 1865, after a relentless campaign by Ulysses S. Grant, Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia was cornered, exhausted, and starving. Recognizing the futility of further resistance, Lee agreed to meet Grant to discuss terms. In the parlor of the McLean House, Lee surrendered his army, effectively ending the Civil War. Grant's generous terms, allowing the Confederate soldiers to return home, set a tone of reconciliation for the difficult task of reuniting the nation that lay ahead. The legacy of the Civil War is vast and complex. It ended slavery, but the struggle for civil rights had just begun. It forged a stronger, more centralized federal government. The scars of the war, both physical and psychological, would linger for generations. These 10 battles, from the first shots at Sumter to the final surrender at Appomattox, were the crucibles in which a new United States was formed. They remind us of the incredible cost of division and the enduring strength required to heal a fractured nation. Thank you for joining us on this journey through a defining chapter of American history. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more historical deep dives.